You're listening to Audiology. Support this channel by becoming a member and be sure to submit your requests for topics in the comments below. From the time the decree of the 17th of November 1791 was put into effect, Catholic clergy and those escaping the revolution, known as émigrés, faced the wrath and violence of pro-republican groups, often driven by the sans-culottes. This tension heightened significantly with the introduction of the law of suspects on the 17th of September 1793 by the National Convention of the French First Republic. This law ignited what can be described as revolutionary paranoia across the nation by loosely defining what behaviors were considered suspicious and leaving accused individuals without a way to defend themselves. In the midst of this turbulent period, Nantes became a focal point of suffering due to its proximity to the French Civil War in the Vendée region. Aside from the constant threat of battles and police actions, the city had to deal with potential epidemics and the looming threat of starvation. The city became overwhelmed with more than 10,000 prisoners of war, and the challenge of simply providing enough food for them became a serious concern for Nantes' inhabitants. To manage these crises, Jean-Baptiste Carrier, originally from the Auvergne region, was appointed by National Convention leaders to secure food supplies for Republican soldiers stationed in Nantes. Carrier's role quickly expanded, to include ensuring food for all local residents, maintaining order, and suppressing any suspected royalist uprising. As 1793 turned into autumn, the fear of diseases like typhus, spreading from prisoners to the broader population of Nantes, escalated into outright panic. The staggering number of deaths among inmates, noted by military officials, medical professionals, and civic leaders alike, drove city authorities to desperate measures to halt the spread of sickness. Their solution was to evacuate the central city jails, transferring inmates to the coffee warehouse jail at the port and onto ships anchored in the harbour. On the night of November 16, 1793, which corresponds to the 26th of Brumaire Year II in the French Republican calendar, a tragic event occurred involving the drowning of 160 Catholic priests. These priests were known as the refractory clergy because they resisted the government's authority. Initially arrested in the local area, they were confined at the Saint Clément convent before being moved to the Carmelite mission in Nantes, transformed into a prison for them during the summer of 1793. Due to harsh conditions, particularly suffering under the intense summer sun, they were relocated between July 19th and August 6th to Chantenay-sur-Loire, a place immediately to the west of Nantes. There, they were kept on a barge named La Thérèse. However, on October 25th, orders from the Revolutionary Committee of Nantes demanded their transfer back to the docks, this time to a barge called La Gloire. The execution itself was meticulously planned. Guillaume Lamberty, an adjutant general alongside someone named Fouquet and shipwrights, prepared another barge specifically for this grim purpose. They instructed O'Sullivan, a master of arms, and his team to move 90 prisoners from La Gloire to this custom-fitted barge. Once set afloat in the river, the execution was carried out, leading to the near-total drowning of these prisoners. Miraculously, 3 individuals initially survived, rescued and warmed by sailors from the warship L'Imposant, but were later returned to custody and died with another group of priests the following night. Father Landau stands as the sole survivor of this massacre. Thanks to his exceptional swimming skills, he escaped by jumping into the Loire River during a commotion and swam to safety. An eyewitness, a ship's gunner named Whaley from La Samaritaine, provided the sole first-person account of these drownings. He detailed his chilling experience of encountering Lamberty and Fouquet, hearing the haunting screams of the victims, and then the eerie silence that followed their deaths in the water. This event marks one of the many dark chapters during a tumultuous period in French history, reflecting the extreme measures taken during the Revolution. Guillaume Lamberty was in charge of a tragic event in which 58 clergymen, previously transported from Angers, were forcefully stripped by Marat Foucault and his team. These priests were then placed on a barge that had been specially outfitted for this grim task. Unlike before, they were taken far out to the mouth of the Loire River, far away from the port city of Nantes. Tragically, none of them survived this journey. On the night of December 4th, 1793, a significant meeting took place among the top figures of Nantes' Revolutionary Committee. This included Jean-Baptiste Carrier, François-Louis Philippe Trangely, and their colleagues, with representation from both the department and the city, as well as the Société Populaire de Nantes. Amid intense discussions, they decided to form a jury to identify so-called criminals. By the next day, the jury had listed more than 300 people deemed for execution. Carrier introduced a chilling method he called vertical deportation, essentially loading the condemned onto boats, then dumping them into the Loire River at Chantenay village, rather than sending them to a far-off penal colony. These killings were meant to be carried out under the cover of darkness to keep them hidden. However, when bodies started to reappear on the river's surface, sometimes days later, the committee grew anxious over potential public backlash. The execution duties were split between Guillaume Lamberty and his men, along with the Marat Company of Revolutionary Guards, or the American Hussars. This group was notably composed of ex-black slaves and settlers from Saint-Domingue, earning its nickname due to its unique composition. In late 1793, a series of tragic events unfolded, starting with what is known as the Buffet drownings. On the nights of December 14th and 15th, under the leadership of Jean-Jacques Goulin and Michel Moreau-Grandmaison, a group of mostly intoxicated soldiers from the Marat Company descended upon Buffet prison. Without bothering to check their list, these soldiers haphazardly selected prisoners, confiscated their possessions and money, and then tied them in pairs to heavy stones. These 129 unfortunate individuals were then transported on a flatboat a short distance downstream from Nantes to Trentemoult, near the island of Cheviré, and mercilessly drowned. The horror continued a week later, on December 23rd, with another mass drowning. This time, Pierre Robin, Fouquet, and others coerced around 800 people, identified as royalist sympathizers of varying ages and genders, onto 2 boats. These boats only made it as far as Chantenay before the captives were drowned. Included in these atrocities were the particularly heinous acts known as Republican marriages, where individuals, allegedly including a priest and a nun, were stripped, bound together and drowned, in a grim parody of a baptism. Further tragedies ensued with the galliot drownings from December 29, 1793, to January 18, 1794. Dutch galleots, small 2-masted trading vessels trapped in Nantes by a naval blockade, were repurposed for executing prisoners. The exact number of voyages these ships made is unclear, but on each trip they carried between 200 to 300 men, women and children to their deaths. The victims were loaded into the hold, which was then sealed before the vessel was sunk in the Loire River. On the nights of January 29th and 30th, Carrier, the organizer of these events, cleared out the coffee warehouse jail, sending about 400 people to their demise in this manner. The final act of this brutal series occurred on February 27, 1794, in Bourgneuf Bay, resulting in the deaths of 41 individuals, including the elderly, women, girls and children, some as young as 6. Official documents presented in Paris on October 12, 1794, confirmed that these drownings were ordered by Adjutant General Lefebvre, marking a dark chapter in history with its senseless loss of life. The exact number of people who lost their lives in the drownings remains unclear. Roger Dupuy estimated that there were between 7 and 11 instances of mass drowning, with each event claiming the lives of 300 to 400 individuals. Jacques Hussenet provided a broader estimate, suggesting that between 1,800 and 4,800 people were drowned on the command of Carrier, and possibly another 2,000 drowned under the orders of other Republican revolutionaries in Nantes. Adding to the discussion, Jean-Clément Martin estimated the death toll from mass drownings to be between 1,800 and 4,000. Alfred Lally, in 1879, stated that 4,860 individuals were drowned, a figure confirmed by Hippolyte Taine. Reynold Secker mentioned that during the autumn of 1793 alone, 4,800 victims were executed by drowning. Meanwhile, Gaston Martin's estimates suggest about 1,800 victims. Fouquet argues for a toll of 9,000, and Mélinet reports 3,500 deaths. Historian Reynold Secker has described these dreadful acts as part of a deliberate policy aimed at the extermination of the Vendée residents. This policy was strategized by the Revolutionary Committee of Public Safety and was officially endorsed by the National Convention in Paris on October 1, 1793. Jean-Baptiste Carrier is most notorious for orchestrating the large-scale drownings in Nantes. However, his crimes extended beyond that. He also ordered the shooting of between 1,800 and 2,600 individuals at a quarry in Gigant near Nantes, and was involved in numerous other illegal and harsh activities. He claimed these were all justified by the law of suspects. His extreme paranoia especially showed in the case known as the affair of the 132 Nantes moderates. This event, described as a tragicomedy of justice, saw the arrest and trial of over 132 men from various backgrounds. These men were vaguely accused of holding moderate political views, labelled federalism, but were all eventually found not guilty in Paris. Carrier was called back to Paris in early 1794 for the trial of Robespierre. Initially, he wasn't bothered by the Thermidorians, the revolutionaries who overthrew Robespierre. However, soon after, he came under heavy criticism and accusation by members of the Revolutionary Committee of Nantes. With compelling evidence against him, he was arrested in Paris on the 3rd of September 1794 and formally charged on the 27th of November. During his trial, Carrier awkwardly and sarcastically denied knowing anything about the accusations levelled against him. Nonetheless, he was quickly denounced by those who were once close to him. He faced charges including the mass drownings, shootings, the murder of women and children, thefts, and acts of greed, as well as contributing to the turmoil in Nantes. The verdict against him was unanimous, leading to his execution by guillotine on the 16th of December 1794. Thanks for watching. Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more content.